There have been many proposed countries that never quite became real nations. Some are pretty dull and realistic, while others are wild and obviously impossible. Here are 10 planned countries that never came into existence. Oh, I should say, despite the title, only some of these ever had any chance of existing. It's not clickbait, it's just that I'm barely literate. The Knights of the Golden Circle was a 19th century American secret society. They were pro-slavery and, knowing abolition may be nearing, wanted to form their own country where slavery could continue indefinitely. Their proposed nation was known as the Golden Circle, a union of Confederate American states, Mexico, the entire Caribbean and Central American region. The Golden Circle was to be led by the Mexican Emperor. It was a paramilitary group prepared to use force in annexing territory. They wanted to ensure the South won the US Civil War, but after the North won, the Golden Circle seemed like a less realistic dream and support faded. Some say Abraham Lincoln's assassin was a member of the group, and that they operated underground for many more decades, hiding slavery and wartime loot. After the First World War, the world knew two things: to fear Germany and be very suspicious of Russia. So plans were drawn up for a massive new country to keep both in check. Known as Intermarium, it was to be a buffer state to prevent war between the Germans and the Russians, and also to protect the peoples in between. It was to stretch from the Black Sea to the Baltic Sea, giving it enough land and resources to become a major European power in itself. It was part of an old Polish nationalist plot to prevent Russia from being a threat to other European nations. But the only major power to support the proposed country was France. Other nations believed it would soon fall apart, so Intermarium was never established. Germany and Russia went to war, and those caught in between were brutalized. I wonder how history could have been different if Intermarium was created. The North American Technate. This was proposed by a group known as Technocracy Incorporated. Their movement wanted society to be run by engineers and scientists rather than politicians, who they saw as corrupt and useless. Society's problems would be solved by the scientific method and morality would be less important. They wanted all of North and Central America to unite under one technocratic government, becoming a utopian superstate to match the Soviet Union. The movement peaked during the Great Depression. Huge crowds were drawn to their meetings and many believed the Technate would soon be established, but their opponents likened technocracy to communism, which in those days wasn't exactly popular. As the economy recovered, interest in the movement fell, and today the dream of technocracy is largely forgotten. Imperial Federation. It sounds like something from Stargate, but really it was a proposed British superstate. The general idea was that the British Empire would unite as one single global country, rather than have a colonial system. Founded in 1884, the Imperial Federation League campaigned solely for this. They wanted an American-style federal union, allowing colonies to make some of their own laws and have a say in how things are run. They said this would prevent the fall of the empire. People revolt against colonial overlords, but if you can convince them they are citizens of a superstate, you might see more stability. But by the end of World War I, it just seemed impractical. It would have been history's most ambitious political union. In North America, there is a bioregion called Cascadia. It crosses into parts of both the US and Canada, but many who live there feel more Cascadian than Canadian or American. There is a growing movement for Cascadian independence. Those behind it want a new eco-friendly country to call home. They have the worst flag I've ever seen, but can still boast significant support in the region. If successful, it would have the 20th largest country in terms of land area, but first in terms of population of filthy hippies. It would have multiple national languages, one of which being Cantonese for some reason, which by the way isn't even an official language of China. After the Ottoman Empire fell, the Middle East was carved up by the British and French empires, but everyone knew it was a temporary arrangement, and so new countries would soon need to be established. During the Second World War, Jordan and Iraq were ruled by the House of Hashem, who also held influence in Syria. They proposed that all three countries, along with what is now Israel and Palestine, be unified into one kingdom. This would have given them massive regional power, which is one of the reasons Syria refused to join. Another reason was a military putsch in Syria, making it almost impossible. When the House of Hashem lost the Iraqi throne in 1958, all hope in establishing the Crescent was lost. The Austro-Hungarian Empire fell apart after World War I, but it might have been saved. Acknowledging the ethnic conflicts within the empire, one lawyer proposed federalization. Under his plan, territories would be drawn up based on nationalist tendencies. And if you look at his map, he's done a pretty good job. Transylvania is separate from Hungary. The Czechs and Slovaks also have their own states. This man clearly has an understanding of ethnic conflict. It might have worked. Franz Ferdinand, heir to the throne, believed this was a good idea. He planned on creating a federal system along these lines, but as you know, he was assassinated before having a chance to do this. We all know some in Tibet want independence from China, but East Turkestan is less well known. It's a large territory in China's northwest corner. 3 times the size of France, there have been several attempts to form an independent republic, but China remains in full control. The native population are not Chinese and are overwhelmingly Islamic, but the Chinese population within the region is growing fast. In 1949 it was 4%, and today it's almost 50%, making East Turkestani independence increasingly unlikely. The Soviet Union did the same thing, encouraging Russian communities to move to Georgia and eastern Ukraine, making those areas less likely to gain independence. Scandinavian countries have strong cultural ties, partly because historically they have often been in political unions with each other, so it's no surprise there have been movements to unify Scandinavia into one country. No plans were ever taken seriously, but in 1872 Scandinavian settlers founded a town in New Zealand. And when you think about it, that town is basically a small Scandinavia, so a united Scandinavia would probably look just like New Zealand. Before we get to number 1, I just want to let you know I'm now on Instagram. I'm doing these kind of fact images. I plan on doing them daily, so if you want some bonus content, my username is eskifymedia. I'll put a link in the description and most likely a pinned comment. If you have any suggestions, feel free to send me a DM there or on any of my social accounts. The Nazis had all kinds of plans for Europe after their victory in World War II, one of which was to establish a new country, the SS state of Burgundy, a client state somewhere in Western Europe, most likely France. They also wanted a French region called Brittany to become an independent state, which is ironic considering France always wanted Germany to be broken into states. Heinrich Himmler was obsessed with establishing Burgundy, wanting the leader of the Belgian fascists to become its chancellor. Himmler claimed Adolf Hitler fully supported this, but that could just have been a crazy lie. You can't trust Himmler.